Good morning, good afternoon, wherever it may be for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome to our very first episode of A Breath of Fresh Football. Logan and I would like to thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us. We'd also like to thank John Myers for being our very first guest ever. How's that feel, John?
It feels great. I'm going to try to set the bar high for your followers and for whoever comes on next. But it's great to be here. You and me go way back from going to school together, and so I'm very thankful to help you guys out.
Yeah, we are
John,
so glad to have you on. But Logan, let's jump into talking about us and why we decided to start this podcast. So, do you want to go first?
First off, John, the bar is already set pretty low because
It is. Yeah, you're right.
Honestly, so my fiance listens to podcasts all the time. She loves the crime podcast, all that. And I was thinking the other day, I started looking into podcasts and everything. And Pat McAfee has a great podcast. First off, I love Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's the man. So I'm like, the only person I really ever talked football with was Kyle. And, me and Kyle have been best friends, Kyle, since 7th, 8th grade?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were, we kind of knew each other. We weren't, real good friends until about freshman year, I would say. Or at least 8th grade, freshman year, I think.
So, the story is Kyle used to have to walk around.
Yeah, okay, so it was 8th grade. Now I think of it was 8th grade. Yep.
Yeah. And the guy that was supposed to pick him up one day just didn't show up. So I'm like, hey, I want to get out of class early. I'll take you. Like, all right. So, and then instantly we just started hitting off. I mean, our high school years, we literally spent all the time together. He lived in our house.
Dude, I would walk into his house and just go straight to the fridge.
You guys are making me cry.
And the thing is literally, we didn't care. We were brothers pretty much. So, I'm like, I haven't, when I moved, we still connect and everything, but we don't connect every day like we used to. And I'm like, I think this would be a great thing for us to start reconnecting again. We both love football. We both bonded over football. We used to make a franchise in every single Madden every year. So that's the big thing. I just honestly to reconnect my friendship with a friend. That's the biggest thing. I missed it.
Well, yeah, just going back, it was like you said, whenever you moved, we grew away from each other, and we went our own direction, especially with you were in Charleston, which is like an hour and a half from here, so I haven't really. I mean, other than this past Halloween was the first time I went and saw you since then, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
since high school, so. It's been like 6 years, but it was awesome to see you again, and it's crazy. I have a teaching job, and you're going to taking classes, but also like on the job of being a EMT. Is that right?
EMT, getting my paramedic, and hopefully the end goal is 5.
That's awesome.
So
yeah.
So, running the Birdie building just sounds kind of badass. So. But it's kind of cool because when we meet each other, when we see each other occasionally, we pick up right where we left off. It's never.
Yeah. I remember when I came over for Halloween and we just sat in the chair and we were just talking.
John, literally, he walks into my house and guess what? The first thing he does.
I did not go to the fridge today at that time. You had candy on the table. I started grabbing that.
Dude, this dude used to he ate more food than anyone else I knew. And he weighed
sounds like me.
130 pounds.
Dude, I told you. So, when we were talking about how many pizzas we needed, I was like, I thought we needed more because I thought everyone else would eat like me. And then, no one else ate pizza other than me. I almost ate a whole pizza. I took a whole goddamn pizza home.
And he probably finished in 5 minutes.
I think I saved it for a couple days and then I ate it, but it wasn't bad. It was good.
So,
All right.
all right. Well, that's less about us. Let's
Yeah,
get
so
back to
let's jump
football
into
now.
some of the latest football news. So, what is your thoughts on Watson being upset with the Texans and him coming out and saying he'd be okay with a Dolphins trade? Question mark.
Talking to me on this one.
Oh, either of you guys.
I'll start.
I'll let you go
Deshaun
first, John.
Watson, great athlete. J.J. Watt said it great after the season was over. He was apologized to him for wasting a year of his career, and I agree. Houston, you just wasted a year of this man's career. He goes back to the 2017 draft. The controversial draft where the Bears, my Bears, drafted Mitchell Trubisky over Watson, Mahomes. It's one of those things where when Houston got him, I'm like, oh, like this dude was a dog at Clemson. And then his first year went by in Houston, and I'm like, this dude's going to be a dog in the NFL. And just the fact that what I think they went like 4-12 or 5-11, the fact that what he did this year still made it so special. Just to be a football fan, just to watch. I remember watching the Texans Bears game, and I'm like, oh, we got this one wrapped up. I'm like, there's no way they're gonna come in and like compete. The first half, I was really scared. I'm like, whoa, they're not supposed to be good. But Deshaun Watson put his team on his back, literally game after game after game. And to go off with the Miami Dolphins trading, one of my best friends, he's a big Dolphins fan, and we talked about this. He does not like Tua at all. So he is all for it. I'm not really all for it just because, would I like to see him in Chicago? Yeah. But overall, I think trading Tua for Deshaun Watson is a bad idea for Miami just because Tua in the right system, you've seen at Alabama where he can win championships and he can win games.
Yeah. I was me and your friend were actually on PlayStation
Yeah.
the other day, and we were talking, and yeah, I got the vibe. He wasn't a big Tua believer or whatever. I don't like giving up on a QB after a year. I mean, like I said, like up until the Cardinals drafted Kyler Murray, I didn't want Kyler Murray. I was a Josh Rosen fan. I wanted to give him another chance because I just don't think 1 year is fair enough for a QB, especially if you draft him in the first round. I mean, there's other reasons. I mean, you could go to, Jimmy Clausen back in Carolina and how they gave up on him after a year, but they got the first overall pick and they went Cam Newton, which I understood. Jimmy was a second round pick, so that's a little bit different. But we drafted Josh Rosen at number 10, fourth QB off the board, which I thought was him just dropping. I was like, these teams are gonna pay. I still think he could turn into some. I'm hoping. I don't know if his future's in San Francisco or whoever gives him a chance, but I thought it was good that he was on the practice squad for the Buccaneers this year, and he was learning under Tom Brady. Because whatever he can learn from Tom Brady, hopefully pick up. Maybe he'll come out and be better, but we'll see. Kyler Murray is, some different.
Trash.
But I wouldn't. I don't think giving up on Tua just yet. I believe in Tua. He was so good at Bama.
With the weapons around him. I mean, you look at it. They got come back next year. Albert Wilson's coming back. Preston Wilson's coming back after injury. They got Devontae Parker, who's probably top 15 receiver in the league, top 10 maybe, perhaps on some people's lists. And you got Mike Gesicki, who's a top 5 tight end. If they figure out their O-line deal, they're going to be just fine. And the fact that they never gave him a shot, just because when those games came around, when it's close in the fourth quarter, you know who they threw in there? They threw Ryan Fitzpatrick. They're like they're holding on to his hand and just holding on to it. And like, okay, you know what? Let the bigger brother come in and finish games. You got to let him learn from those mistakes, man. Whatever happens. You lose, you lose. You don't make the playoffs, you don't make the playoffs. But you got to let the young buck make his decisions and learn from them.
I agree with what you're saying, and that's the thing. I mean, Flores is a great coach, and I think he's creating a great culture down there. But like even last year, how he would he flipped from Fitzpatrick to Rosen, back to Fitzpatrick. I just feel like he's too antsy to throw the next QB in. As soon as the QB's making mistakes, he's jumping to someone else. And I understand that he's playing to win, but like you said, they got to do. The young bucks, they need to be able to learn and get through the situations they're going through. So that's my biggest. I think is my biggest flaw with Flores. I think he's a great coach. He's really turned it around for the Dolphins, and I think he has a bright future. But like I said, that's just my biggest flaw, and like I don't think I would give up on Tua yet. And but speaking of the weapons coming back for the Dolphins next year, they have the 3rd overall draft
They
pick
do.
because of the Texans. So if they keep that pick and don't trade it for Deshaun Watson, and other people are saying they could go QB or whatever, but like at 3, you could get the Oregon offensive lineman, or you could get the Heisman winner and Devontae Smith at number 3. That and the thing is, Devontae Smith played with Tua at Alabama. Yeah. He caught that when they beat Georgia in the national championship, he caught that ball to win the game.
Yeah, and like I agree, and I think they got enough weapons already on the offensive side where they don't need another receiver. If they wanted to go that way, that's totally fine with them. But honestly, O-line is their biggest problem. Ryan Fitzpatrick, when he was back there, Ryan Fitzpatrick's not that quarterback just going to he's not going to look good. He's going to throw it in the triple coverage and doesn't care about it. But when there's quadruple coverage, you know what he's going to do? He's going to take the ball and just run. He doesn't care if he's getting sacked. He's just going to take the ball and just run over anyone you want. Ryan Fitzpatrick's not a franchise quarterback. He is a good quarterback to have for a year to bring in to mentor other quarterbacks. It's just like Josh McCown. They're great quarterbacks to mentor people. They're not franchise quarterbacks. That's why you see Ryan Fitzpatrick on a new team every other year.
And I can honestly get behind that. But back to the Deshaun Watson thing. That dude lost his number 1 receiver, still threw for 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions.
That's crazy. That's crazy because not only did he lose Hopkins before the year, but is it Fuller?
Fuller got tested for PEDs.
Yeah. So he lost him too, and he still threw for that many yards.
The big thing is he has a right to be mad though, because they took away his best weapon.
He has a right to be mad just because they didn't listen to him when they were talking about the head coaching position. He wanted to bring in Eric Bellamy, at least give him an interview, the offensive coordinator from the Chiefs, which every team is looking at because you see what he's doing in Kansas City. He's an Andy Reid guy. Andy Reid coaches are proven fact that they can win championships. They're gonna.
Well, what about Matt Nagy?
No, that's a different story. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
That's a topic for a little bit later in the podcast.
Honestly, though, the Dolphins trading for Watson would be phenomenal for him because they want Tua to be just like Watson. Why not trade for the sure thing?
Yeah, you have a good point there. But trading for Watson, your money.
That's what I was about to say. How much how much money it's going to cost to bring him in, and that is taken away from you bringing back guys like, say, Byron Jones to another contract or to other guys on a defense, because that defense carried the Dolphins this year.
But also we see it
even using that money for O-line. Like you said, that's their biggest problem. So why don't you use money to shore up that O-line? And then, whatever you want to do with the 3rd pick, whether it's get the Oregon lineman or to, go Devontae Smith because of his connection with Tua at Alabama, whatever you best think would fit and help the offense there, you do that at 3 and you keep
my bold prediction, and it just happened a little bit ago. I don't know if you guys saw that Jaguars did hire Urban Meyer as the next head coach for the Jaguars. So he was at that Clemson Ohio State semifinal game, looking at both Trevor Lawrence and what's his face, Justin Fields.
Justin Fields.
I'm just saying, what if Fields goes number 1? The Jets don't take a quarterback. They keep with Sam Darnold and go like Panay Sewell with 2. And you're looking at Trevor Lawrence at number 3.
Wow, John, you just threw a big scenario. If that happens, then
You have to go
Trevor
Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it's just one of those things.
And then you turn around and trade
You trade
Tua
for
maybe
you trade
a
Tua
second
for a couple
round.
picks in the future.
Yeah, which if that happens,
here's the thing.
Yep.
Is Justin Fields though the sure?
He's not. I'm not saying he's a sure number 1, but you saw the way. I don't know if you watched that game, that Clemson Ohio State game. That man balled out. That man balled out, and I don't know. He's an Urban Meyer's Ohio State guy. Justin Fields from Ohio State. Will they bring him in because he is mobile, and Trevor Lawrence is like somewhat mobile, but in the NFL, mobile is different.
Yeah. Well,
here's my thoughts. I just feel like I think Trevor Lawrence is the clear number 1 pick. I know the thing is like Justin Fields did transfer while Urban Meyer was technically there, but he wasn't transferring because of Urban Meyer. Because I believe I think Urban Meyer knew he was in step down, and Justin Fields transferred for a different reason. So, and the thing is, he's never coached them, so I don't know. I mean, obviously, the Ohio State connection, which that I could, it's gonna stir up some, news talk and rumors and stuff like that leading up to the draft. But I just feel like, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is just he's something different.
If I'm a GM, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence in a heartbeat. Trevor Lawrence is the next LeBron James of football. Next Tom Brady. Like it's just one of those things. Like these guys come around. I don't know how long, but they rarely come around. And Trevor Lawrence, if he is in the right system, Trevor Lawrence is going to win championships.
Yeah, exactly. I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about how I don't know, Lawrence, the last QB to come out that was, so highly touted, as the next generation talent was Andrew Luck. And Andrew Luck, he did, he had his injuries, but whenever he was on the field, he made the Colts a different team. So if, Trevor Lawrence is that guy, that's what the Jags need. They need to turn around. They had a couple of years where they went to the playoffs with Blake Bortles, but if you have Trevor Lawrence and you're able to build a defense like they had when they had Blake, they could make a deep run. I think they made it. Didn't they make it to AFC Championship game with
and
Blake
lost to the
Bortles?
Patriots?
Yeah, so if they have Trevor Lawrence, that probably puts them over the hump to get to the Super Bowl and maybe even win the Super Bowl.
Okay, so let's say the Jaguars do take Trevor Lawrence though. Does the Jets stick with Sam Darnold or go Justin Fields?
So say that again, Logan.
So let's say Jags take Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall. Okay.
Yep.
Do the Jets then pick Fields with the second pick, or who do they pick?
I think it boils down to who gets that coaching job. Who is gonna be the coach of the Jets? Because then, because whoever comes in,
who do you guys think will be the coach?
I don't know. I mean, all these teams are interviewing a lot of candidates, and I'm not really good with guessing. I mean, like John was saying earlier, every team, and even now the Texans are going to be interviewing Eric, from the OC from the Chiefs. I mean, he's interviewed for every single team. Joe Brady is also another hot candidate, again, interviewed for most of the teams. I don't know if all of them have interviewed him, but I don't know where he goes. I don't know what he thinks is the best fit for him. And I'm sure he's looking at all the, vacancies, and he's going to choose the best one if he gets offered the job. If he gets through this cycle with interviewing for every single team and still does not get a coaching job, then my next question is he's probably interviewing really bad. If he's gone through 2 cycles of getting interviewed by a lot of teams and not landing a job, then it's got to be something with his interviewing. So I don't know, but I don't know who's gonna get the Jets coaching job, but whoever does, I mean, that's who they got to sit down with the GM and be like, do we go another year with Darnold, or do we just go Fields, or do you go Zach Wilson? I really think Zach Wilson's gonna jump up that board. I don't know. I mean, especially Fields wasn't great in the championship game, wasn't awful, but based on his other games, I think he threw 3 picks against Indiana. Like Indiana had a good team this year, but 3 picks
No,
in the first half.
they didn't play Indiana. It was I believe it was Wake Forest or Pittsburgh, one of those teams.
No, I'm talking about.
You talking about Justin Fields?
Ohio State. They played Indiana.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were talking about Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, no. But I mean, 3 picks in the first half against Indiana, I believe, for Justin Fields. So, he had a bad year compared to last year when he threw for 2. He only threw 2 interceptions in the last. His second interception came in the last play of that game.
But he won
Clemson.
a Big Ten championship and got to the college football championship.
Yeah. He balled out, like you said earlier. He balled out against Clemson, and I wasn't expecting that. I thought Clemson was the better team, and Justin Fields came in and just balled, against a good defense.
So let's say the Jaguars pick Trevor Lawrence with their second round pick. What do you like? Do they get him weapons?
They're gonna have to fix up their line.
What do they get?
It's the same thing with the Bengals and Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean they got G.J. Chark. They got a great running back.
Robinson.
Now. I mean, as a rookie, was a 5th in rushing yards.
Practice squad rookie.
Something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. You got
the weapons.
Trevor
they got the
Lawrence.
weapons.
Yeah.
They were D.D. Westbrook and Tyler Eifert and D.J. Chark, like you were just talking about. When you get that O-line fix up.
But also, do you go get a tight end? Because look at the Ravens right now. They have Marquise Brown, Willie Snead. Not bad receivers, but not great. But Lamar has Mark Andrews to look forward to. And that duo is great.
If you're Jacksonville's GM and Urban Meyer, you're looking at this as like a 5-year plan. You're not looking at this as we're going to be good by year 3. No, you got to look at year 5. Year 5 is when we're going to be going after it.
But also,
they got 90.
People
I thought it was 90 million.
71 million cap space.
They have almost $90 million in free agency. I would not spend all that right away because we still don't know who all the free agents are going to be because there's still teams left in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, look at some of these free agents, though. Now you got, KJ Green's out there, Matthew Judon.
There'll be some good guys, but I don't. I think you get a healthy balance of veterans and young guys just because, you don't want to be that team that just goes all in right away. You gotta build towards it.
Yeah, and going off of what John was saying, especially with the Joe Burrow situation, the Bengals didn't do anything to shore up that O-line, and boom, Joe Burrow tears his ACL. I'm sure. I feel like Joe Burrow's gonna come back and he'll probably pick up where he was. Oh, that's a big
yeah.
If you're listening to this podcast, John Myers just said Joe Burrow for MVP. So let's see how that
dude, but to get there, he's got to get past the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns, and those
teams.
They're
good. They're good. I'm not saying that, but you give Joe Burrow some weapons, a couple of weapons, and you get in that O-line.
Well, we all know
they're going to let AJ Green walk. Yeah, but they still got.
They're going to let him.
Oh, what's his face from Clemson last year? T. Higgins.
T. Higgins.
T. Higgins. They still got. Tyler Boyd. They still got John Ross. They got. What was that running back? Mixon. Joe Mixon. He's still a dog.
Joe Mixon.
Well, speaking of Ross, he was inactive most of the year. They didn't. He was healthy scratches. So I think he's out the door too. And then, like you guys said, AJ Green, I mean, he's just not himself anymore. And just, after this year, just seeing, how little production he was putting up. I mean, he had maybe a game or so that he did good, but like even with Joe
But
Burrow throwing to him,
it's literally
just,
like any other sport you could say this year. It's the reason why they didn't fire Zach Taylor. It's COVID. COVID played a huge thing into not firing coaches. A lot of coaches that should have been fired, and it just happens. It's one of those years where you don't know what was going to happen. Some players did not even get to play all their games because of COVID. It's like college football. College football, some coaches didn't get fired like they're probably supposed to just because of COVID.
yeah. And I mean, yeah, COVID is crazy. I mean, not to talk about a different sport, but like just talking about basketball right now, they're considering a 2-week shutdown because speaking of I have an NBA fantasy team, and yesterday literally my whole team was they weren't playing because 9 games got canceled yesterday. So yeah, COVID is a big,
and it's playing into the money
down.
thing with every team. A lot of teams didn't have fans this year. They didn't get to make that revenue. So a lot of it, it's like I was watching the Bears post-season interviews yesterday. They asked them if the money decision to bring Pace and Nagy back made it a issue. And Ted Phillips, the GM, said the owner, but the president said no, it wasn't anything, which I doubt it because every sport and every team is hitting a little bit because they're not bringing revenue in.
Yeah. Well, NFL is doing a lot of teams are bringing some fans in. I know Chicago didn't, but they're doing it more than baseball did over the summer, of course, because other than the World Series, they got no
it's just one of those things where
fans.
How much? I guess my overall question is how much can you blame the coaches this year based on COVID?
Yeah. Every other day, like the Ravens. They were down to, RG3
Trace
1
McSorley.
week. Just the Broncos had no QBs.
Yeah, they had to have that
the wide receiver who played quarterback in college had to come in and play quarterback. It's just one of those things that I just don't see how you can blame this season. I said it from day one from college football, watching Illinois play, and we got our butts kicked. I'm like, I don't blame anything this season because of COVID, because there's guys who are not playing because they have COVID. There's guys who opted out because of COVID, and it stinks, but it is what it is. You got to keep going.
Yeah.
Well, and first and foremost, being on the front end of this, because being a healthcare worker, it is a serious business. So, I mean, I understand
me too.
Guys sitting out. But so if you guys, let's go back to the Deshaun Watson thing. If you guys are Deshaun Watson, you got your pick. Where are you going?
Miami.
Of all the places they've been linked to.
Yeah, I mean, Miami would probably be his best choice. I don't know who's all in the market for QBs, but Miami
I would love to have him in
probably
Chicago,
be the best
but it's a shit show.
option.
It's a total shit show, and so with them probably not going to bring Allen Robinson back. There's only one weapon.
All right, John. That? So now that you brought it up, we'll go to the Chicago segment of this podcast. So, John, I got a couple questions for you about Chicago. I wrote down a list.
Okay.
Kyle probably has some. Is going to be
That's a big question. Mitch is going to be a Bear next year. Do I think so? I would love so. I would love to have Mitch back. We were talking about earlier about not giving Josh Rosen a chance. Mitchell Trubisky has never had a chance to stay set foot in Chicago. He got drafted the second overall pick in 2017. He has not given a fair shot from day one. People did not like him right away. It was like, oh my God, we traded for nothing. We traded up and got nothing. You know what? We got a franchise quarterback if you give him a shot. You saw what happened this year when they, after they benched him, they switched offense coordinators to Bill Lazor. You moved him around the pocket, and he actually looked decent. For those 4 or 5 weeks, he was right behind Aaron Rodgers in total passing yards and total touchdowns. It's just blind. It mind blows me to the fact that people just hate Mitch so much. And I love Mitch, not just because of a quarterback, but he's a team player. You got to bring that back. We're going back to COVID. Do you want to spend money on a quarterback decision? Do you want to bring in another quarterback from the draft? Do you want to spend your 20th pick on Trey Lance or Zach Wilson or Kyle Trask, or Mac Jones? No. If you're the Bears, if you're Ryan Pace, no, they're bringing you back in for one more year. Just get the team ready for your next GM. That's all I'm saying. To answer your question, Logan, yes, I really think Mitch is going to be back on a franchise tag.
So I just pulled up his stats for the 2020 to 2021 season. 2,000 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. But
yeah, I was going to say, in how many games?
Half the season.
Yeah, 9 games. So 9 games when he was benched for 6 weeks in a row. Basically 6, 7, if you think about 7, because we had a bye week.
And 7 out of the 9 was over 200
yards. I don't know if you guys watched the Bears from when Nick Foles was starting to Mitchell Trubisky, but I saw a stat when we won that little win streak at the end of the year. The Bears scored 30 points in 4 straight games for the first time since the 60s. That's saying something. That's when crazy. Nick Foles was in there, barely. Me and my buddies, we watch football every weekend. We would come over here and watch a bunch of the games, and we're all Bears fans, and we're sitting here watching the Bears, and we're just disgusted, just because Nick Foles. They thought bringing him in is going to be a great job. You know what? I thought it was going to be a great move too, just because they're going to give him some competition. But when you started Nick Foles, he came in and saved the day against the Falcons. But once again, you got to let Mitch learn from that loss. You got to keep him in. Because I'm telling you right now, if you kept Mitch in for the whole season, you're beating the Colts. You're beating a couple teams. You might have beat the Saints the first time if we didn't get Javon Wims ejected, and there was a few passes that were questionable on Nick Foles' part that Mitch probably would have never thrown. And Mitch stunk when he first came back against Green Bay. But you're going to Green Bay in your first game back after 6 or 7 weeks. It's going to be rough. But then he turned it around, and people started to believe. It mind blows me to know that people switched so hard after the game against the Lions. Like, oh my God, Mitch might actually be our guy. Well, no shit. I've been saying that all year long.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, John, I am a Mitch hater. I do think he did come back. He bounced back after being benched and coming back, and he did play really well going down the stretch. So I will give that to him. I just
Mitch
feel like
Trubisky reminds me a lot of.
I feel like Pace and Nagy coming back for another year. Even though, like I've told you before, John, I don't know why in their right mind they're bringing Nagy back. But I just feel like them coming back, I don't know if they'll bring Mitch back. After they already, they turned down the 5th-year option before the season. And, how quick Nagy was to bench him, at the beginning of the year. Like, you have a coach that doesn't believe in Mitch. And I just, I know bringing, you're a big Mitch believer, and bringing him back you think is the right idea. But why would you want to bring him back if you have a coach that doesn't believe in him? And I feel like he needs to go somewhere where he, has a coach that believes in him, a coach that, is more willing to call different plays. All I hear from Bears fans all the time is how small Nagy's playbook is because he doesn't open it up.
Matt Nagy's playbook
much,
is not small. It's huge, but he doesn't use all of them. Matt Nagy tries to be
exactly.
so cute,
that's
he thinks he's the most perfect offensive guru in the NFL. He basically thinks he's Sean McVay. Matt Nagy needs to stick to his strengths, which is rolling Mitch out of the pocket, getting him on the run, using his legs. He can run the ball. Like, even when they brought him back, I saw maybe 2 read options with him. Let him run the ball, man. You got 2-headed horse there with Mitch and David Montgomery. Why not use that to your strengths? And then you got weapons on the outside like Darnell Mooney, which everyone now is like so high over. But I'm so high over it because he's going to be really good. Allen Robinson, rest in peace to him because his Bears career is over. Anthony Miller, which I hope to God they get rid of him after that fight he got into in the playoff game. But other than that, they got guys like Cole Kmet, When they drafted Jimmy Graham, but when they drafted
Jimmy
Cole Kmet, I
Graham.
was so mad. I was so mad because one, we already had like 7 tight ends on the roster. 2,
What was that? I think it was
it
like
was something
15 tight ends. You
stupid,
guys had like
and
15 tight ends over. It
there
was
was
something
2
crazy.
safeties sitting there that I really wanted. I wanted one of them. I wanted the dude from Minnesota who now plays for the Bucks. Can't remember his name now, but Antoine Winfield. I wanted him so bad, but it was fine because now that I look about it, Cole Kmet actually shined great, and he's going to be a great tight end. But overall, to answer your question, it's mark my words. When Mitch goes somewhere else, he's going to win a Super Bowl. I can't say any better than that because you know what he doesn't believe in him, and when Mitch goes somewhere else, he's going to ball out. And I'm not going to say he's going to win MVP, but he's going to win a Super Bowl.
Not only did we have one hot take today, we have two hot takes. Joe Burrow for MVP and Mitchell Trubisky's going to win a Super Bowl. Mark his words, John Myers.
Mitch Trubisky's one of those.
Don't hate on my boy Jay.
He's got great games, and he's got awful games. There's no.
But that's with every quarterback.
Games,
I mean, you look at so-called Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback to ever play so far. His game against the Dolphins this year, he had like 3 interceptions in the first half. But we're not talking about that because he's consistently had good games. Yes, Mitch does not have good or bad, like you said. I agree with you. But the overall picture, when you look at it, Mitch leads this team. Even if you bring him back to be a backup, you got to bring him in because he knows his offense. Knock on wood, whoever they bring in is not a bust. But if you have to, Mitch is there that he can win you games.
Yeah, okay. I totally get what you're saying. So my
wait.
My question
I want to hear what
I have for you.
Logan was about to say.
Okay.
So my other question for you. So the beginning of the season, David Montgomery was not. He was decent. Towards the end, though, he was balling out pretty good. Do you think that's going to affect Tariq Cohen's?
I hate Tariq Cohen.
Carries
personally. My buddy doesn't get why, but every time I play Madden franchise, I trade him. I don't know why. I just don't like him. I think we overpaid him. It was a 3-year, $17 million extension to a dude who is like 5'8" or whatever, and he's a scat back. He's a good punt returner, but you know how much that money we could have spent. That money could have been spent towards Allen Robinson's extension because they're like $2 million apart from what he wants. Use that money towards your franchise guys. Don't give Tariq Cohen. Granted he was a Pro Bowler a couple years ago, but still, like, don't give that money to him. The money spending in the Bears organization is just awful. Do I think it's going to take away from his carries? Yes, just because Montgomery showed that he can catch the ball out of the backfield now. I think this is the time where you see they might shop him. I don't know how much worth he's going to be after he come back off injury from this past year, but I don't think he's going to get as many touches, especially if you bring back Cordell Patterson, because Cordell Patterson showed that he was a receiver, but he turned into a pretty good running back by the end of the year.
Okay. Kyle, you can go ahead with your questions now.
All right, so just give us some quick thoughts. How did you feel after Sunday's
disgusted
playoff loss?
To tell you straight up, it was disgusting to watch. Did I think we were going to be in that game at all? No. And at halftime, I literally walked outside of my house, and my buddy followed me. We sat outside for about 5 minutes, and just silent. And then finally, I looked at him. I'm like, "We're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to be 10-3 at halftime. It's not supposed to be this close. It's supposed to be like 40-0 by now. That we're not that good. We weren't even supposed to be there anyway because your Cardinals choked it and let us in, which is just disgusting to me in the first place.
Yeah, that we really did.
Javon Wims
stretch, and
go ahead.
You can go back to your Bears, but building off of what you're saying, I will say on the weekend though, the Bears Saints game was probably the most boring out of all the games. And I'm saying,
it just depends if you watch it on Nickelodeon or CBS.
Yeah. Well, I heard a lot of people actually watched it on That was the most watched game this weekend, though, and I do think it was just pretty
Every
boring.
game was
Just
so
like
good
nothing
besides this
really
one. This was
happened.
just
I mean,
awful. If there was one game to be played all weekend that was just trash, it was the Bears game. And they just showed they show everyone over and over again they cannot play on prime time. They cannot play in front of thousands and thousands and millions of fans on national television because we just get dump trucked always.
yeah. Well, after Wims drops that catch and the touchdown catch, if he catches that, that's a whole different
get me
ballgame.
started.
And after that happened, that's when you guys stopped.
Yeah, I found it really funny that after that play, we decided not to go past 10 yards passing from there on. It was really funny. And it's like, we kicked that field goal to make it 10-3, and my buddy looked at me. He goes, "You know what? It could be 10-10 right now if Javon would have caught that." And I yelled some words that I'm not going to say on this podcast, but I yelled at him, and I'm like, I know. Like, don't tell me twice. Like, I know. Like, it's just those things that I was not stressed at all that whole day until he dropped that pass. And then I was just furious. I ran straight through my house. I almost broke my hand punching, like, every drawer there was. Like, I was just so mad. I'm like, I don't know how you dropped that. And you went from being the most hated man in Chicago to being one of the most praised after that catch before on the sideline. And then you go ahead and just make yourself the most hated man in Chicago once again.
Yeah, but hey, at least he'll never be.
I don't know about that. You want
also
another stat happened because Cody Parkey had more points than the Bears did on Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
And
the first thing they
crazy.
And the first thing they showed on the game was, they showed like the Saints, losing on the Minneapolis Miracle and stuff like that. And then they showed Cody Parkey's kick, and I did not see it the whole day. And then I saw the kick, and I'm just like, you got to be kidding me.
All right. So what are your expectations, or what would you do over the offseason? How would you fix the Chicago Bears, John Meyer?
I think they need to just sell the team and get a major overhaul. Their defense is still good. Obviously they're still good. They got Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson, Keem Hicks, Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith is looking better and better every year. Really Danny Trevathan is a solid, backup. Manti Te'o actually surprised me in that game. We signed him because Roquan was out. We signed him from our practice squad, and he actually did not do bad for having a week of pregame practices. The line needs a little bit of fix. We saw at the end of the year, going back to your question, Logan, about David Montgomery looking pretty good by the end of the year. That's because they revamped the O-line. We had injuries all year. We had Bobby Massey that was out. James Daniels got hurt week 3. That really hurt. But when they moved Whitehair from center to left guard and Sam Mustipher, I know no one on this podcast knows who Sam Mustipher is. He's only making literally $1.39 million as a center in the NFL. And, I believe there's some of those guys who are on a practice squad who are not meant, who are like, they're meant to be on a practice squad. But this guy, there's guys who are meant to like be just game players, like not practice players, but just you throw them in the game and they're ready. So Sam Mustipher did great. Alex Barr stepped in and played a great role. And then trying to think of his name now, the right tackle. I can't even think of his name now because I don't like him so much. I really don't like him at all. It's trying to look on my list right here. I'm not going to be able to get it right away, but I don't like him. I wish I could know his name right now. Jermaine Ifedi. That's what it is. Jermaine Ifedi. I don't like him at all. I didn't like him at guard when he was playing guard for us. Don't like him at tackle. But it goes back to Mitch. Who's the quarterback? Who is the quarterback right now? Because we're looking at it because Mitch's contract's up. Nick Foles is our quarterback, which is scary. But if I'm going to fix anything, you got to fix the O-line. You got to spend some money on the O-line. The worst signing we ever had right now is spending $70 million on Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn, who is awful. He did not do anything this year, nothing at all. He kept getting washed up in pass rush and kept getting ate up. He had two strips this year for a fumble, and that's it. That's the only time I saw him really do anything.
Robert
didn't You guys brought Robert Quinn in to replace
Yes.
Leonard Fournette or Floyd, right? And then look what Floyd did
The Rams,
for
and
who's he
getting
on
rid
the
of Floyd
Rams
was
or
not the best thing. Obviously, I don't know why they did, but they did. And they bring in Robert Quinn, and I'm like, when we got Robert Quinn, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my god, this dude's about to tear it up. No, I have the biggest blue balls watching him play.
yeah. Okay, so that will do you have any more questions,
I
Logan?
still got a couple.
Or...
So, Allen Robinson, all right? Let's say he walks. Do you go out and try to get another receiver, Chris Godwin, Kenny Galladay, Will Fuller? Do you go try to get them, or do you draft a QB?
You're going to draft a couple of receivers. If you're going to go get a receiver, you're not going to spend much money on them right now because, one, we don't have much cap. So that depends on if they trade some guys. Trying to get that cap back. But other than that, I don't think you're going to see them go out there and spend a lot of money on receivers just because we don't have the cap. And, bringing in young guys. If you're going to bring in a quarterback, you might as well bring in some young receivers.
Yeah. So is the Bears a win now team, or is it time to rebuild?
The Bears have never been a rebuild team in my lifetime. Just looking back at it, when you're a Chicago Bears fan, it's kind of like being a New England Patriots fan or a New York Yankees fan. In baseball, you don't rebuild. You reload. It was hard this year watching them go 8-8. Last year going 8-8. But you got that defense still. You could piggyback off of that defense as long as you get a solid enough offense to give you 20 plus points a game. You're going to win games. I'm not saying you're going to win a lot of games, but you're going to win enough games to get you to the playoffs. The Bears are not about sitting at home, playoff time. We're about championships. We're about winning the North and getting to the playoffs and making that next step. That's what they said in the interviews. They want to get to that next step, which is winning games in the playoffs. Yes, I'm the same way. I want to win a couple games in the playoffs. Do I want to get to the Super Bowl? Do I want to win a championship? Yes. But if we can win games in the playoffs, then we can say, okay, we are a legitimate organization and we are here and we're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Okay. So let's say you're the GM for the Bears.
20th overall pick, I'm taking I hate to say it, but it depends who's there. If Mac Jones is there, somehow Justin Fields or someone slides, it's not going to happen. But Mac Jones is there. Only way I would take the quarterback if Mac Jones is there. I don't think Trey Lance is going to be there or be good enough. I don't think Zach Wilson is going to fit the Bears scheme. But I think Mac Jones, if he's there, you take Mac Jones. If not, you're taking a receiver or O-line. Depends who's there. Honestly, if I don't want Ryan Pace near that pick, that selection. I don't want anyone. I don't want Nagy near that selection. I don't want Pace near that selection. I want them to take the best overall player. I don't care if he's a lineman or if he's a kicker. Take the next best player that's on the draft board. Don't try to go get a diamond in the rough and go. Ryan Pace does a great job. Rounds 2 through 5, he has done a great job in the past. Eddie Goldman, Bilal Nichols. You're looking at Eddie Jackson. You're looking at guys like Tariq Cohen, Cole Kmet, Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, like I said, Darnell Mooney. Jackson. Like he's a great 2 through 5 guy. But you saw with his first overall pick, his second overall pick a couple years ago, Mitchell Trubisky. I love Mitch. But it made sense at the time. I say it all the time, Mitch pick made sense. Yeah, look who the coach was. It was John Fox. He wasn't running this, RPO stuff. This all this new offense. Mitch is a pro-style quarterback, and that made sense for John Fox. But overall, you got to take the next best position, and if it's a quarterback, it's a quarterback. But Mitchell Trubisky, he is not going to leave Chicago, and if he does, like I said, he's going to win a championship somewhere else, and it's sad. But I'll get a jersey to every team he's on because I am a big Mitchell Trubisky guy.
All right, so enough of this talk about Mitch Trubisky because, why are we talking about someone who's going to be a backup next year, right?
Oh.
What's your opinion?
Throwing shade.
Let's talk about the wild card this
Okay.
last weekend. Surprises? Any surprises?
I was probably surprised at how close the Colts Bills game was. I would say I thought the Bills would run away with that game, and the Colts put their own foot into that game and almost won it. But I was really surprised. I know the Rams played really well against the Seahawks this season, but I just thought playoff football, Russell Wilson. I just thought the Seahawks would bring it out, but that Rams defense, that's good. The Rams had no QB this weekend. They had two active QBs, and one QB had a broken hand, and then John Wolford gets hurt, concussion, and you have to bring in Jared Goff with a broken hand. I don't know what thought process went into Sean McVay with only having two QBs active, but if I'm in that situation, and Cliff Kingsbury did the same thing week 17. Kyler Murray, he was a little banged up. He was able to start, but with him being banged up, I would go 3 active QBs, and he went 1 active QB. Murray gets hurt, and we have Chris Shevler, who played CFL football last year, as our QB. I'm like, what? We had a guy that played and came in one of his games the previous year when Murray got hurt, but yeah, we only went 2 active QBs. So I thought that was not a good strategy by Sean McVay, but I was surprised with the Rams coming out. And speaking of another surprise, Washington, Tyler
Heineke, big football team guy. I'm a
how
big
do you
football
say his
team
last
guy.
name? Yeah, Taylor. Yeah, man, he just balled out Saturday night.
Real quick, 26 attempts, 306 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He rushed for 6 attempts, 46 yards, and 1 touchdown. For a guy that's and especially against Tom Brady, that's good.
Yeah, and let's talk about XFL. He was in the XFL last year, or earlier last year, 2020, and he was the backup QB on our St. Louis Battlehawks, and he just comes into an NFL game and just balls out.
I mean, the way I look at it, I'll listen to PMT a lot, and they said it right. When you watch that game, you don't want to say that Taylor Heineke is worth 5 years, $110 million. During the game, you're like, oh my God, this dude's a franchise quarterback. But after the game, you're like, okay, yeah, he had a good game. Everyone has a good game every once in a while. Will he find a backup job next year? Yeah. Wherever he's at, he's going to be a backup, which is great. Some guys are meant to be backup, like Nick Foles or Case Keenum. Those guys are meant to be backups. It's not. There's nothing wrong with being a backup.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think he will stay in Washington. I think, after a game like that, Alex.
You don't know about
still,
his future.
You gotta be a little worried about those injuries. Exactly. So, they're probably gonna keep him. I can't see them, letting him go, especially.
They do Kyle Allen, but
they also
they might
have
sign
Kyle
Cam
Allen coming back.
because
so I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know what they'll do, but I mean, he at least got himself a job as a backup QB in this league. But
I'm gonna say one more thing, and then I gotta go. But my biggest surprise with this weekend was Bears got their butt kicked, but it was the way the Bears played. It really surprised me. They played pretty decent still, and the Washington football team. The way I describe them both. They're kind of like those two dudes. They're kind of like those guys at a party. We're like, okay, hey, we're not gonna steal your girlfriend. We're gonna come here, have some fun, do a couple cake stands. We're gonna laugh at the party. But we don't want to steal your girlfriend. So she could stay over there. We're not gonna get any wins. Basically, when I say girlfriend, we're not gonna win the game. But we're gonna have some fun while we're doing it. And they did. They had they had fun trying to beat the teams. Football team and the Bucks and the Bears and the Saints, they had fun trying to do it, but they're not those guys that are going to try to steal your girlfriends. They're just the life of the party.
Another big one that was pretty big is how about them Browns?
That is big. That was big.
Oh yeah,
How
I
about them
forgot about
Browns
that.
coming and
Man.
just
Well,
destroying the
I mean,
Steelers?
you could thank TikTok boy
Yeah.
and for that. So the Steelers were frauds all year. I was saying it all year. They're frauds because they haven't played anyone, and when they did play someone, they lost. The last 4 games of the season, the Steelers were 1-3, and the Ravens were 3-1. So not Ravens, but the Browns were 3-1. So that tells you anything.
Browns, yeah.
You know, Juju should be cut just because of what he said.
Well, we're going to talk
Yeah.
more about that
So
next
I'm just gonna
week.
say that he should have been
For
cut. It's just one of those things. I appreciate you guys for letting me be on this podcast. Yeah, no problem. If you guys ever want
Yeah,
me
yeah.
back on, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully everyone enjoys this podcast and keep it going, guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you. What?
Thank you.
No problem. But hey,
The Browns are the
before you
Browns.
go, Browns is the
Corvette.
Browns.
See you guys.
See ya.
All right. So now it's
All
just you and
right.
me.
Yeah. So, what do you want to jump into your Ravens?
Dude, I've been waiting for this all night. Lamar Jackson finally winning his playoff game. That everyone doubted him. Lamar Jackson's is something great. He's gonna be something great.
Yeah. But Lamar Jackson, he is like I think he's the first QB ever to rush for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons, and that's crazy to think about. And Lamar, he may have his questions throwing wise, but I mean, okay. Speaking of throwing and his season, how did you feel about the Ravens this year? How do you feel Lamar did?
Well, I'm pretty skeptical because the Madden curse, like always. Before COVID, we were downhill, but then after Lamar got off COVID, he started balling out. I mean, his passes were looking good. He was, he's not consistently relying on his legs anymore, which is nice. Because to be a quarterback and win big games, you got to pass. The Ravens are full a run team. They're run first. I mean, we got Lamar, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Mark Ingram. I hope they bring him back this year.
Well, Mark Ingram was a healthy. I think wasn't he a healthy scratch this past weekend?
He's been a healthy scratch a lot of the season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's too old. And like you said, you got enough running backs. Like, I mean, it's fun having him around, especially last year when you had Lamar and RG3 and Mark in the little Heisman package, but same with RG3. Like, I think he's a great mentor for Lamar.
And that's
but
I want Mark.
he got hurt in the one game he got to play this year. But like, he's just I'm a big RG3 fan, but he just didn't do anything. I just it's a real shame what happened to him in Washington, as I really thought like he's still one of my favorite fantasy players. In his first year of Madden, playing with him, like, man, he was so good in Madden. And Lamar Jackson, I haven't played with him in the newer Madden games, but I'm sure
with Vic again. It's fun.
Yeah, Vic and all those good times. But so whatever, I hopefully the Ravens keep getting better. Hopefully Lamar keeps getting better. And,
back to
the AFC is tough, so I don't know if he'll ever get over the hump and win a championship like Joe Flacco did. But we'll see.
Well, back to the Titans and Ravens game though. Let's give credit to that defense. They held Derrick Henry to 40 yards on 18 attempts.
Yeah,
his
that's
average
crazy.
was
2,000-yard rusher, and they kept him to 40 yards in the playoff game.
And I mean, that's phenomenal. Derrick Henry, the guy that runs over everybody. Now this week, I'm skeptical about this week.
Yeah,
Josh Allen and those Bills, they're rolling. And granted, we got Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, probably the best cornerback duo in the league. Against that, I mean, Stephon Diggs is going to be hard to cover. Yeah, Stephon Diggs, John Brown's still on there, and then they got Cole Beasley in the slot. It's going to be a tough game.
Yeah. So speaking of this weekend, why don't let's do our predictions for this weekend. Saturday, you have Rams Packers. So who do you got?
I think, again, you got Aaron Rodgers. He's got that chip on his shoulder after they drafted Jordan Love. He's going to prove that he can still win it all. So I'm going Jags. Packers.
Yeah, I agree. Like I was talking about earlier, when we were talking about the Rams Seahawks game, Jared Goff is only a couple of weeks off having thumb surgery.
And they might not have Aaron Donald this week.
And I haven't heard much about that. But like, if you don't have Aaron Donald, you have Jared Goff is playing QB, starting QB because John Wolford guy, he got ruled out for this weekend. So, you got a QB that, last game really didn't throw that well. The Packers, I just think it's going to be easy dub for them. Aaron Rodgers, like you said, he wants another championship. He's only got one championship so far, and he's got that chip on his shoulder after, Packers drafted Love in the first round this past year. He wants to go out and ball, and, he's going to do that. So, Packers, now let's jump into Ravens-Bills.
This is tough.
I know you're a Ravens fan, but what is your prediction for this weekend?
Honestly, this one could go either way. I mean, the Bills are – Josh Allen is looking amazing this year. And if the Bills' big thing is they're going to have to stop the run game. Because if we get a run game going, we can't stop. Once we get that run game, we're good. The Ravens they're going to have to stop Josh Allen because Josh Allen's kind of like Lamar. If he doesn't see anything, he can take off running. I think it's going to be a close game. But I hate to say it, I got to give it to the Bills. I think the Bills are going to do it. They're just looking so good this year. Josh Allen, MVP season almost. I mean, he's up there for MVPs, and he's looking good.
Yeah, I will have to agree with you. I would. I think the Bills is the team that will come up big this weekend. I mean, he's throwing this Stephon Diggs. I mean, and that connection right now is just looking so good. One thing about the Bills is Zach Moss is hurt, but they Devin, I think, is a Devin Singletary. He'll be getting the rushes this weekend. But they also signed Devontae Freeman to be the backup running back for this weekend. So I think the Bills have like you said, Josh Allen's putting up a MVP like season. He's gonna be the one that comes up.
Back to that
weekend.
Ravens defense. I mean, we got Chuck Clark, Deshaun Elliott. Deshaun Elliott, this is his first year playing. He's balling out. Chuck Clark's looking good. Those safeties are going to have to do some work. And those rookie middle linebackers we have, I think it's Malik Harrison. That's who our middle linebacker is. And then Patrick Queen. I mean,
yeah.
This is the test for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump into Sunday now. First game of Sunday is Browns-Chiefs. Who you got?
I hate the Chiefs, man. I mean, Pat Mahomes, he's revamping the NFL. I mean, those Browns, pretty good, and those Browns are, they're feeling success. It's going to be a tough game, but I mean, that Chiefs offense is so high power. It's hard to stop them.
Yeah. So, like you said, Pat Mahomes he's so good. That Chiefs team is just it's up and down. It's good. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. And then, it's awesome the Browns won, first playoffs since 2002. And they come in and they win that game.
It was their first playoff win since 1994, I think is what it was saying. We weren't even live by then. Baker Mayfield and that organization is really turning around the team. And it's a shame they have to, they run into the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are just, like you said, that's the team that's on play the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But if the Ravens do win, then you'll run into the Chiefs next weekend. But you know, like you said, the Chiefs are the team that's gonna come out and they're gonna beat the Browns. I think the luck's gonna run
The
out.
only the only
So
team I think that can stop the Chiefs right now in the AFC is got to be the Bills. I mean, and if they
yeah,
play, that's going to be a high scoring game because those offense is just amazing. The Bills have a slight advantage on defense. They got a young, fast defense. Their defense is very fast.
yeah, it would be awesome for if we saw like a couple of years ago Monday Night Football Chiefs Rams.
Yeah,
If that's able to happen with the Browns Chiefs or the Bills Chiefs next weekend, that would be a hell of a game to
yeah,
watch.
that would be a very good one. So the last Sunday night game, Bucks and Saints.
Well, so I wrote down the scores because I was curious of what the scores were for those two games this year, and the first week, of course, it was 34-23. Saints beat the Bucks. This was the first week. Brady, first time being in that. That first time being in the offense. There was no preseason games this year, so the Saints came out on top. They beat the Bucks.
Yep.
Surprised everyone. And the Saints kept Mike Evans to one reception for like 5 or 6 yards that game. But Mike Evans did come back the second game, and he had a better game. I think he had 60, maybe 80 yards, between 60 to 80 yards receiving. But the Saints won 38-3. Drew Brees threw for 4 TDs while Tom Brady threw for 3 interceptions. But the Bucks are hot right now. Tom Brady, of course, it's hard to bet against him in the playoffs. His last playoff game, he's hungry. He lost to the Titans. Everyone thought he was done. They thought he should hang it up after last year. He only threw for 24 TDs last year, which TDs isn't a stat to, evaluate a QB, but like just Tom Brady didn't look the same. But also at the same time, the Patriots, their offense is atrocious right now. And I feel so bad for Cam Newton, this year. I love Cam Newton, but he had no one to throw to. He had no one around him. And he didn't look the greatest himself anyways, but it's any QB you throw in that situation, if I don't know who the Patriots are going to get, but if they draft someone like Mac Jones or Trey Lance or Kyle Trask, or if they go out and try to trade for someone, which I know they don't have much cap, or they sign someone, they don't have any weapons there. So and Tom Brady, he has a lot of weapons, and with them being hot right now, I really do think this is gonna be a good game. And it's hard. I don't know who's gonna win. I just the Saints, like we were talking about the Bears game, the Bears weren't supposed to be in that game, and the Saints let them stay in that game. So, and Drew Brees, like Tom Brady at times, isn't looking the best. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to go Bucks this game. Even though the Bucks didn't look the greatest against Washington, I think Washington has a great defense though. And I'm not saying the Saints don't have a good defense or a great team. I think the Bucks are hot right now, and I think they come out and they've lost to the Saints twice this year. I think they're coming for blood.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on
So what's
that
your
one.
prediction?
I'm gonna have to give it to the Bucks. I mean, look at that offense. You got AB. He's starting to get in the groove there. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You got Rob Gronkowski. I'm pretty sure they still have Cameron Brate. Leonard.
Yeah, they got Cameron.
You got Leonard.
Yeah, I mean that offense. You got Leonard Fournette. You got if Jones is there.
Yeah.
You even got your fourth running back is LaShawn McCoy. You could throw a pass to him, and I'm sure he'll get 20 yards. So, I like like we said, I think the Bucks do come out and get the game.
Tom Brady he's got to prove to everyone that he was not a system quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And he heard that for so many years, and I think he did pick a good situation to go to in Bruce Arians. And, Bruce doesn't hold back. Like, there was times this year he was calling out Tom Brady. He's called out his past QBs. Like, he's willing to speak his mind. And I do think that helps Tom Brady, having a coach that – and I'm sure, Belichick probably, spoke his mind too. But, I just, he's keeping – I think he went to a great situation in Tampa, and he was able to bring his weapons like Rob Gronsky. As I butchered that, but he brought Gronk in, and he brought in AB, which that's saving AB's career. If it wasn't for Tom Brady, AB would not be in the league right now, and he would probably never play another down in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I got to give it to the Bucs. I mean, Tom, you can never, ever doubt Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Yeah, so do you have any last thoughts before we wrap this? So for the fans that are listening, we're going to jump into another segment a little bit that'll come. I'm having my friend Ryan on. It's just going to be me and him talking about the national championship game this past Monday. Hell of a game. I couldn't believe that Alabama just came in and crushed Ohio State. And Ryan, he's one of my bosses from college. He's a big Ohio State fan. So I'm going to get his thoughts on the game, thoughts on Ohio State's season, Justin Fields' season, whether he should he still go pro or should he stay another year, maybe try to win a national championship. I'm going to get his thoughts on Michigan extending Harbaugh. See how happy he is, the outlook of Ohio State's program. And I want his prediction on who's starting QB next year for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
All right.
But
I got one more question.
We really love that you listen to this podcast, and we hope that you come in and start following us each week. And thank you. Got anything you'd like to say,
So
Logan?
I guess I'm going to ask you one more question, but before I do, thanks, guys. I mean, literally, if no one listens, I'm just catching up with an old friend, but you guys listening and making this more fun is the best. So, Kyle, last thing before we go. Larry Fitzgerald, yes. Does he retire or does he come back?
I really think he retires. He didn't have, I love Larry. He's a forever
You
Cardinal.
couldn't ask a nicer person in the world, first off.
Yeah, and he's a great person. He didn't play like a number 2 receiver this year. And, after Hopkins, Larry wasn't the same. Christian Kirk didn't make the jump we thought he would make. We took Andy Isabella over DK Metcalf. And that guy's had 1 TD pass, and that was literally his only catch he's had in like 2 years. And I think those are our 3, big wide receivers. And the reason why the Cardinals fired their wide receiver coach is because none of our receivers made a jump this year. And, they just haven't developed, and only having Hopkins, you can only do so much. He's a great receiver. He's going to get most of the targets. Some games he's going to have 13 catches for 150 yards. But, like, if you don't have someone to complement him, you can only do so much. Teams are going to cover Hopkins, and if you don't have anyone else that's going to make that next step or, make a play, there's only so much you can do. So I think he retires, especially after he had that COVID scare where he was out for a week. It really made him, he was really scared. And when he came back from it, he lost, I don't know if he lost a lot of weight, but he could feel the difference after it. And I just think after a scare like that, I just think he hangs it up. And, like Cliff said, he talked to Larry and said it was going to be a long, thoughtful, it's going to be a couple months before we hear some. Because he's really going to think about it. and I really think he hangs it up finally because I just think that COVID scare, I think that just I just think he hangs it up. So I think he
agree, but
retires.
forever, Larry Fitzgerald will always be my favorite receiver. Him and Calvin Johnson. I mean, the dude has more career tackles than drops. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better football player and a better human being to represent your organization.
Yeah, and I feel like it's him passing the torch to DeAndre Hopkins. You know, he was there for all those years. You know, Hopkins comes in, and now he's passing the torch to Hopkins. And hopefully Hopkins, the Cardinals, that's a whole nother discussion for another podcast. Yeah. But I just hope, Hopkins doesn't get frustrated. Because like I said, there's some games like he'll come out and he'll catch 13 passes. But there's some games where we only got him the ball like 3 or 4 times. Like, when you have a receiver like that, you got to target him more. And, I'm not sure, maybe the defenses were, covering him more, but like there was just some games where Kyler was just not targeting Hopkins when that's the guy you got to get the ball to.
So, all right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening to this and have a wonderful rest of your day or night.
Yeah. Same thing. Retweet what Logan said. So, all right. That is.